Hey guys, in this video we're going to give you an update of the ChessGoals Dynamic Slav course. I don't believe we have done an update since March to let everyone know how this course is coming along. We also have a Catalan course that I'll put a link to in the description and a D4 course. So once we have this Slav course complete, we have Black Repertoire against E4, Black Repertoire against everything else, that'll be this Slav course. And then we have a full white classical D4 repertoire, which is D4, C4, Knight C3 are sort of the main three moves. Alright, so the way I'm outlining this is I'm using a Google Sheet. And if we look here in this first column, Chapter 1, Semi-Slav Noteboom Variation. This has not changed much from the original plans. So what we're going to do is we're going to start out with the triangle system. D4, D5, C4, C6, Knight F3, E6, Knight C3. If this move order happens by white, it's the most common move order, we are going to take and play what's called the Noteboom variation. And these lines are really fun. They score well for black, and it gives us nice dynamic play. Then we can play for the win, and that's sort of the goal in this course. Like, we want a solid repertoire. We also want to get into lines that score well in practice, that we can know well, and that we can play for the win, similar to the Catalan course. So that PGN is complete. That has about 10 lines. Chapter 2 is the Martial Gambit. So the Martial Gambit is when white starts Knight C3, we go for the triangle setup. If they go Knight F3, we're going for the Noteboom. And here white plays E4 immediately. These lines get sharp, but I have some ways that I can navigate you through the tactics. And again, we're going to look for positions where we can play for a win. And there's not a lot of draws in the Martial. So I think you guys will be happy with the system that we have laid out. Maybe I'll give you a peek of that system. So after E4, D takes E, Knight takes E. We're checking with bishop to B4. We win the D pawn. And now things get a little bit crazy because we're up one pawn, but white does have some development. And we're recommending this move Knight to A6. It's a little bit strange looking if you don't know the theory, but it's got some good points behind it. White's going to try to get their queen in there, and it takes us a couple moves to unwind. But once we unwind, you can see here, we already have some pressure on the white queen, and we're still up that pawn. So this gives us really good chances to play for the win. Alright, so that's the Martial Gambit. That PGN's complete. Queen's Gambit Decline Exchange Variation. This is new since the last update. So I've been practicing this repertoire, and one thing I noticed is quite often players will just trade that pawn on D5 right after I go for the triangle setup. So I decided to do a whole chapter on this because this is much different than the Slav exchange, for example. So if white takes here, there's a whole chapter on this. We just take back, and that's the Slav exchange. But if white plays Knight C3 and then takes, we don't want to take here because it's sort of like a bad Slav exchange. We have this C8 bishop trapped in by the E pawn. So here we take back with our E pawn. This gets us into Queen's Gambit Declined Exchange Variation territory. I know it's a lot to say, but what we're going to recommend here are early Queen B6 lines. And we're going to try to play aggressive and put the pressure on white. So similar to our Catalan course, we want to play for the initiative. We want to play for interesting positions where we can go for the win. So that's going to be Chapter 3. That chapter is complete. Chapter 4, Dutch Stonewall and Catalan Attempts. I really like this chapter. I'm a Catalan player myself as white, and I think it's going to kind of shake Catalan players a bit, how aggressive we're playing. So after Knight F3, E3, so this is going to be like the Stonewall variations when white plays E3 here. We're going F5, and we had some fun Dutch Stonewall lines to show you guys. Again, keeping that same theme, interesting stuff where we can learn the plans, play for the win. If white plays G3, we are going to take on C4. So the idea in these lines is If we don't get the Noteboom and it's not an exchange variation, we are going to try to either get a Stonewall Dutch, or we're going to try to grab the C pawn and hold on to it. So both of those type of structures give us a lot of interesting positions to play for the win. So that chapter is also complete. Chapter 5, Slav Exchange. This is one that I had to think pretty hard about because the Slav Exchange is a very dry opening. A lot of times it just leads to dead draws, players trade off all the pieces. There's nothing exciting to play for. I looked really hard for exciting lines, and we're going to surprise our opponents with a quick e5. And if you look at the Lichess stats, black is winning more often than white. So in practice, this is working really well, and if you know the lines and your opponent doesn't, that puts the game in our court, and that's where we're going to get to play for the win. So that chapter is also complete. That's chapter 5. Chapter 6 is the London. I do have a London video for black. If you're not following the Slav course, there's a move order that I really like where you don't play e6, and I'll put a card above if you're interested in that video. But since we want to follow the triangle repertoire, I found a new line that I think is pretty interesting. So we're going to start e6. This is ready for any transposition with c4. After bishop to f4, I'm recommending bishop to d6. And after bishop g3, this tricky move queen to e7 with the idea of capturing, and queen to b4 check. So this is going to be kind of our offbeat anti-London system, and I think you guys will like this. So that chapter is also complete. That's chapter 6. Chapter 7 is the Torrey, Trompowsky, other variations. I don't think there's a lot to go into in terms of moves here, just because these lines are kind of all over the place, so I won't go into that in detail. That chapter is also complete. Chapter 8 is going to be the Reti. That's the chapter I'm working on currently. So that's when white starts with one knight f3. So let's go to the start here. One knight f3 is the fourth most common move. And then we also have another chapter on the English. So these two you can see are played about 13 million games in comparison to 157 with e4 and 79 with d4. So these are only getting one chapter each, but also c4 knight f3 can often transpose into the d4 chapter or even the e4 chapter, sometimes the e4 course I should say. So these each get one chapter, and then we also have one chapter at the end, miscellaneous first moves for white. So it's going to be 10 chapters total. There's 2.5 chapters remaining for me to create the PGNs. Once all the PGNs are created, we will publish the course as sort of like a pre-order where you can order it, get all the PGNs right away. But then Jesse and I still have to record videos for each chapter. As the videos come out, we'll publish them to your folder location. You can watch the videos then, so you'll get a couple videos each week probably until they all come out. My estimated timeline for finishing this course will be probably the end of September. So by the end of the next month, I should have all the PGNs ready for these 10 chapters published on the website, and then we'll probably run some promotions too, since we have multiple opening courses out. There could be a sale or a bundle on, if you get the Catalan and the Slav course together, for example. So that's the Slav course update. If you guys have any questions, please put them in the comments below. We've had a lot of positive feedback on the Catalan course, and I really enjoy working on these opening courses. So it's given me motivation to keep moving ahead with the Slav course. And I think this Slav course and the Catalan course complement each other really well to give you a full repertoire that involves putting your pawns on the light squares. So you want your pawns on c6, d5, e6, and it gives you familiar pawn structures that you can play with. So if you are interested in the course, make sure to follow the YouTube channel. Make sure to subscribe if you're not a subscriber, and give this video a thumbs up if you want more content like this. And we'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching, everybody.